So before I get into the meat of this video, I just want to raise a point which I think needs to be looked at by Gaijin, and it's basically this shit, where you get sniped at very high altitudes by anti-aircraft. It's been happening for updates and updates, it's been happening since I started playing this game. I think it needs to be addressed, and to be quite honest, I don't know why it happens. All I know is that it does happen, and it's pretty much shitty for the game. Especially when you have no outplay potential or anything like that, you just get hit and you're dead. But anyway, let's get into this. So, I got a message or an email from a subscriber, and it was basically asking me to talk about a video that Phly made. It's called A Message to War Thunder, the Phly Rant, or Phly Rant in brackets. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to go and watch it, but most of you probably watched it anyway. It brings up some interesting points about the game itself and issues that the game has, and I think he's mostly correct. I think his conspiracy theory stuff is a bit, well, as he says, conspiracy theory, but I don't mind rants. Personally, I don't really enjoy them because they don't come up with solutions. They just kind of talk about the problems in the game, and the solutions are kind of after the fact. Like, he does offer some solutions to certain things, and I definitely agree with them, but a lot of the stuff is just basically saying it's bad and it's bad. And I mean, that's not a very useful conversation to have, or a discussion. Like, if I'm talking to a developer and going, this is shit, change it, and not offering a way of, basically trying to change it. Like with the AA example, all you have to do is basically say that with the AA, they can only target you if you're 2 kilometers away. Right there, I was at an altitude of 3.5 kilometers, so how the hell would they be able to hit me? Also, ranging shots should be in order. Maybe if an AA is shooting at you, maybe as the more it shoots at you, the more accurate it gets. Something like that. Maybe if you have a larger plane, it is easier to hit. Now that would be a solution for that issue, instead of just telling you about the issue. So I'm going to bring up some points. As I said, I would strongly recommend watching the video, because it's a good watch. And it is from the heart, which is, what we want to see in this community. We don't just want to see a lot of people blabbing about random crap. We want them to sort out issues that people have, and bringing them to the devs, basically to the devs' ears. So, the first one is, he brings up going back to the 20-tier system and why that would be a good idea. Now, I've thought about this a lot, and sorry for the squeaky chair, but I've thought about this a lot, and I disagree with this idea that if we went back to the 20-tier system, it would just be better for the game. Because we have a lot more new vehicles in the game, and I'm pretty sure they would still have the same inherent issues that the 20-tier system did before. Now, when I played the 20-tier system, you could go up or down 2 tiers. So if you were in a 6-tier aircraft, let's say, you could face 8 tiers, or you could face 4 tiers, or somewhere in the middle. So basically, you still had a spread. You weren't just facing stuff at 6. It still had the same issues of balancing. Like, if something was at tier 6, maybe somebody believed because it could easily face tier 8 vehicles, it should be at tier 8. You still had the same inherent issues that the BR system has. Now, in the new BR system, if you want to look at the tiering system we technically have 24 tiers in aircraft and 21 tiers in tanks. Because the BR spread of aircraft is 1 to 9, with increments of 0.3. So you've got 1, 1.3, 1.7. So you have 3 tiers per, 1 BR. So if you do, 9 minus 1, making 8, and then times by 3, that gives you 24. With tanks, it's similar, apart from it goes up to 7.7, so there's actually 20 tiers in tanks, sorry, not 21. So you've still got the 20-tier system in tanks. The difference that we have, in my opinion, is the fact that the BR spread is a bit larger, so you have plus and minus 1 BR. So you can face something in this new BR system that is 3 tiers above you, or 3 tiers below you. Where in the old system, where you had less tiers, you could face something which was 2 tiers above you or 2 tiers below you. So you can see how it's very similar to the old system that we used to have in place. Now, maybe people are having nostalgia about the old system and remembered it better than the new system. A lot of people do. You see it in Counter-Strike. A lot of people talk about how Source was amazing and how CSGO is, pretty crap compared to it. And they bring up a lot of examples, and then when you actually go back to Source and, there's a tournament played in Source or something like that, people go, well, this looks like shit. It's not balanced at all. There's so many issues with it, and then you're just like, well, there goes the nostalgia factor. It's been thrown out of the window. But this new system is pretty much exactly the same as the old one. In tanks, it isn't. I completely agree, because you have 20 tiers, but you have a higher BR spread. So therefore, you have the same amount of tiers, but because of a higher BR spread, you can face stuff which is a lot higher than you would have in the old system. But when it comes to aircraft, it's very, very similar. The issue is not the BR system itself. I think it's where we put stuff at their BR, or as he talks about later in the video, the compression of the matchmaking and stuff like that. So, and another point that he brings up next is how Gaijin goes on statistics instead of players' thoughts and opinions, and basically he says it should be a mix between statistics and players' thoughts and opinions. Now, I completely agree. I think it's valuable to look at both, but the issue is picking who to listen to and who to not. It's an issue that even Valve have run into when it comes to like CSGO and Dota, their two big esports games. It's very hard to listen to the community because there are so many different ideas flung around. Think about how many, or how half the community wants a balanced game and the other half wants a historical game, which would obviously not be balanced. Just think about that case in War Thunder. There's a lot of people who believe this game should be historically accurate. And I think they don't understand that World War II was not balanced at any point in World War II. Otherwise, no side would ever win. They would just fight each other until whoever ran out of aircraft won, which was obviously not the case. There are certain planes which are better than others in different experiences. It's a thing that a lot of people seem to forget when it comes to looking at making a completely historical game. Now, the way that you solve that is by balancing teams by numbers. It's something that I've brought up, and I think they should do. If they are going to do it or not, I doubt it, because it would just cause a lot of backlash. But anyway, that's just a side point. If you go for community heads, such as big YouTubers or people who are regarded well in the forums, then you open them up to criticism and also peer pressure from others. So when it comes to picking community heads or people to listen to, there is always going to be people who are going to turn around and say, why are you listening to him and not somebody else? Same with big YouTubers. Jingles is a massive YouTuber. He brings, he's very fun to listen to. He has a lovely voice, and the way he talks is brilliant. Like, the way he can articulate himself is great, but there are instances in his War Thunder videos where he is just flat out wrong, or reads a situation wrong, same as me. Everybody makes these mistakes, and you upload them to your channel and people call you out. Now, if the devs listened to people and took all of their words as gospel, then you would have a lot of instances where stuff would be completely unbalanced based on people's personal opinions of stuff. Now, the way that you solve that is by getting a bunch of opinions and then curating them and then working out which one is the most popular opinion and stuff like that. The issue with doing that is you're always going to piss people off. So sometimes it is actually better to stay silent. It may sound like a terrible idea, but sometimes it's just better to do stuff. And, hope that there isn't a backlash. At the end of the day, they are making a game, it is their game to make, and you could say that the community keeps it alive. I think it does. I'm not sure the community had to keep it alive, but the community as a whole keeps it alive. And anyway, I do believe there should be some community managers to try and filter out what is good and bad, but it's very hard to do. There's a reason why Valve doesn't have any community managers. it's impossible to do. It's impossible to curate when you have that many people. Now, War Thunder is a lot more smaller scale than that, but it's still the same idea. People have their biases. They have things that they think should be right, and therefore the game will be influenced towards them. And as I said, they'll come under fire. And do you want that on people? But anyway, all you have to do is look at how the WTPC fell through, or the War Thunder Player Council. And I've put a link in the description if you want to read one of the final posts from Boudica, who was one of the people who was part of the council. So, at the time when he left, the status of the members, you had one active, two resigned, one MIA due to real life, and the other had internet issues, and then there was him. So there was literally only 2 people being active on it. And these people were voted in by the community to bridge the gap between the player base and Gaijin. And they failed. I just want that to stick in your head. Because the thing is, people always talk about how player thoughts and opinions should be cared for or should be catered to. And they set up a system so you can do that. So you can offer suggestions, so you can talk to the devs. And it falls through because of the community. It wasn't the devs who made that fall through. They listened to suggestions, they had meetings, they talked to the WTPC members, and guess what? The WTPC members either didn't show up, they didn't have enough time, they didn't want to volunteer, they wanted to get paid, or whatever. The main factor is, at the end of it, that fell through because of the community, not because of the devs. Something that a lot of people also bring up is the forum, where, that's a great place to look at people's opinions and thoughts, so therefore, Gaijin should read the forum and then curate from that. I think the forum is one of the biggest places where it shows the issue with trying to cater to a community or a whole community. Because you have so many conflicting opinions, and you have so many circle jerks, and you have all of this. All you have to do is look on Reddit. Go to something like the League of Legends Reddit, or go to the Dota Reddit, or any of those big Reddits, or big subs, whatever you want to call them. All you will see, a lot of the time, is circle jerks, one way or another. Somebody makes a post, it gets going, it says something's bad, therefore it's bad. There's no thought put into it, it is just bad, and it is easy to bandwagon on games. And you see that on the War Thunder forum at all times. Let's look at the realistic battle discussion forum, which is where I mainly play, right? And we'll look at the top posts. And these are the recently updated ones as of the 5th of the 2nd, 2016, 1:28 PM, Pacific time. So you've got the B24D, Flying Cactus, which is fair enough. It's just a poll basically asking people what their best or what their favorite thing is in the bombers for America. That's nice to have. Then you got the new thermodynamics feedback. It's full of posts of people who have literally played 5 minutes of a plane and basically gone, this is ridiculous, this is stupid. That's not thought-provoking, that's not useful information, there's no real testing on it in here. It's basically it's basically a few hundred people who have flown something for 5 or 10 minutes. And they've gone, this is bullshit, it's not like the old stuff. The next thread is US teams are bad. That's been there since the 18th of March 2015. More than half a year. This thing. It has 4,000 replies, and it's basically talking about how shit American players are. Now, I've talked before that a lot of people who play American planes do not play them right, and a lot of people have argued that the meta doesn't suit them. And well, what I say is change the meta. Change how you play US planes instead of conforming to a meta. That's the whole point of a meta, it's supposed to change. But that thread is there saying US players are bad, or US teams are bad. which in extension means players. What use is that to Gaijin? And it's got the most replies on this whole page. And it's basically just bashing people who play American planes. What use is that? If a Gaijin employee looks at that and goes, oh, the community is talking about stuff, oh, US teams are bad, then they turn around and go, alright, well, it's not our fault. It's not the aircraft's issue, it's the players playing them's issue. What use is that to anyone? The next one, the Japanese repair costs, is nuts. This has been an issue which I think is always brought up every week, and it is true. Apart from this person is using the wrong examples. They're looking at the R2Y2, the J2M3, the J2M5, and the Kai 824Co. They are all comparable to British repair costs, if not less than British repair costs. Look at the Spitfire Mark 24. So that's useless, because it's flat out wrong. Green enemy players. This is supposedly a bug. They have given screenshots, which is good, and it shows that there is an issue. That is good feedback. That is bug reporting. Is it in the wrong section? Completely. It should be in the bug section, but instead it's in the realistic section. So that's useless, because it's in the wrong place. Because the people who are looking for bugs are not going to be able to see it. And then you've got a summary thread for MEC settings, useless to the devs, War Thunder trailer versus reality, a shitpost, Yandere's ultimate US fighting tree grind thread. That's actually quite useful. Because Yandere is basically talking about, like, he's a guy who pops up quite a lot, and he's basically talking about his experiences of grinding through the American tree. But once again, that's useless to devs. F4U1A Corsair BR 2.7, basically telling how the Corsair should be higher BR. Why? Because they think so. No information, or why, comparing it to other planes. There's no thought put into it. It's just basically going, I've had bad experiences, therefore it has to have a higher BR. And then we have how I think complete Japanese bomber line would look like. Pointless post. HO229 in RB, a hot topic, which I think needs to be talked about. I think that's a good post. So we have 1 out of about 10 right now. Yak 3P super overheats. Okay. Once again, a person who either does not know about the Yak 3P, how it was in real life, or he does not, or he has not fully tested it in game. And it's as simple as that. Which kind of annoys me. It is an issue that we have. We have people jumping to conclusions all of the time. Then you've got the Meteors, SW and LW's repair cost. Then you have game crashes. That may be useful, but it should be in bugs. It's also just says, my game crashes. It doesn't give why. It doesn't give any thoughts. Current state of 9.0, always useful. Only affects about maybe 2% of the players. And who is the best aimer in RB? Completely useless. So right now we may have 2 posts which are useful. 3 if you include the bugs, which are in the wrong section. But you can see why it is very hard to go through any discussions and find anything which is useful to the devs. There is a lot of stuff on the forums which is absolute tripe, and maybe you see like 5%, 3% which are useful to you. And this is players' thoughts and opinions. This is the general, supposedly, the forums are supposed to represent the general feelings of the community. Or at least that's how they should be. But it never works like that. And I don't know how else you ask for players' thoughts and opinions. As I said, maybe you go to big YouTubers, maybe you create community heads, but you create them to be martyrs for this game. Because the community in itself wants 2 different things. Part of it wants a historical game, the other part wants a balanced game. So, I don't understand how you do it unless you do it by popular opinion. And I can never believe that the forum for War Thunder, or big YouTubers, they don't have their own personal opinions and they think about the broader ideas of the community. I really don't think that happens at all. So I don't know how you ask players I don't know how you ask them and say, right, what do you want to see? Maybe you post a thread. What bugs do you have? There are threads like that. And the bugs do get fixed. So, I don't know what that statement means. You should definitely not just go on statistics, though. Because the main issue with statistics is that they can be heavily taken apart by a few players. The ME262 is a great example of this. The ME262 is not a very good plane at its BR, and hasn't been for a while. It should have a lower BR. I think it's definitely seen that it should have a lower BR, just because of the performance of its guns, the speed, the maneuverability, everything like that. But there is a small niche number of players in War Thunder who are amazingly good at the ME262. And they wreck in them. They beat sabers in them. They beat everything in them. And therefore they boost the statistics. And therefore the ME262BR stays where it is. And this is the issue with a lot of planes which are deemed quite bad. There is either a reason, there is like one single thing the plane is very good at, like the Horton in this example is very good at ground attack, especially in air battles and ground battles. Well, therefore, its BR should be raised. But then it comes up against stuff that can easily kill it. Well, then you lower it, and then they just keep ground pounding and killing everything anyway. Like, it's a game design issue instead of just the plane issue. The plane in itself an issue. But what I think what the devs have to do is, instead of just looking at statistics, maybe it's better to broaden out the statistics. Like, I know for a fact a lot of players who play the ME262, they'll play it for a few games, realise it's shit, and then put it down again. But there'll be a lot of players who have a fully modded ME262, who play it in squads, who are very good with it. And they will be skewing the statistics massively in favour of it. Because it is an iconic plane, and a lot of people will want to fly it because it's the ME262. And the thing is, you have the same with most vehicles. There are some vehicles which are the exception, like the HE162. Not many people are very good in that, because, well, that is an example of something which really has issues at its BR, because of the way it flies. But yeah, the ME262 is a brilliant example of how statistics can be skewed in any favour, depending on what statistics you look at. Maybe we have to look at more statistics, such as which players are flying the stuff, how many people are. And also the statistics should be open to the community, so we can look at them and understand the decisions. That is a massive issue that the War Thunder devs have. Transparency when it comes to these statistics, because we get told all of the time that BR changes and everything are based on statistics that they have got in the game. But we are never shown the statistics. Now, I think this will come eventually, because when... Just think about like half a year ago, or maybe a bit longer, there was a lot of planes where they would just update the flight model. It would just say in the forum post, right, this the P-51 flight model has been updated. But nowadays, whenever they do changes to planes or tanks, they tell you specifically what they've done, so you can have a look at it and believe it for yourself. So the fact that that got more transparent, I can see this becoming more transparent, but it really has to. It really has to be transparent right now. So instead of the community speculating on what the statistics are and everything like that, we need to have them at face value and then work out what metrics you're using to change things BR. That is something that Gaijin definitely has to do. But anyway, on to the next point that he brings up, which I thought was kind of interesting. And it's the positives and negatives affecting players' opinions of certain planes and tanks. So it's basically saying, right, if somebody plays 10 games in a certain tank and they die 10 times and don't get a single kill, they're going to look at that tank and think, right, it needs its BR load because it's not a very good tank. But this, for me, goes against why we shouldn't properly listen to players. Because there could be massive reasoning against lowering the BR of that tank. Maybe they're just shit in it. Maybe they do not have the skill to properly drive it. Or maybe something, I don't know. Maybe a lot of players think that the BF-109E1 should be lowered because it doesn't have very good guns, they can't seem to kill anything because they put so many bullets into something it doesn't die. But maybe they're using it as just a turn fighter instead of gaining altitude, trying to use some of that energy that it can build up and then going into a turn fight after you've damaged something. Maybe they're doing it wrong. Maybe they're flying it wrong. And that's something that you cannot account for, because they will have a massively negative opinion of the BF-109E1 because they have done shit in it. But as a player in myself who's done really well in it, I have a positive opinion. Do you see the issue with listening to players' thoughts and opinions? You get massively contradictory statements, and you basically have to pick one of them and piss off the other party. And you can't do that, because if you do that, then you're pissing off people. And they go, and they disappear to another game. And one of the examples I thought of, if somebody gets killed over and over again in, let's say, a T-34 1942, they're going to think it's a bad tank, therefore it should be lowered. But if you rationally look at it, it should never be lowered. You cannot let your personal feelings of a vehicle affect where it should be placed in a game. So, as you can see, it's... You have to be able to rationally look at it, to look at all of its stats in the game that we're given, such as in an example of tanks, you have to look at its gun, you have to look at its armor, you have to see what it comes up against, you have to see what it would come up against if you lowered its BR and everything like that, and then you have to make a rational conclusion. The issue is, I'd say 95% of the players do not do that. They have a bad game, they post on the forums they had a bad game, therefore it should be lowered. That's basically what the F4U 1A Corsair forum post is about. Dude had a few bad games against Corsairs and thinks that it should be increased, its BR should be increased. That is an opinion which is worthless, because he may, after posting that, have 3 games where he faces Corsairs and he twats them. And then he's not going to make a post on the forums saying that he twatted them, because that doesn't matter to him. What matters to him is the fact that he got beaten by them. A lot of people look at the negatives instead of the positives. It's something I used to do on exams all the time, and it's an issue I've had with exams and will always. If I got 90% on an exam, I would never see that as a good thing, because I lost 10%. It's amazingly good at university to get 95% in exams, especially I was in sciences and maths. For a lot of people that was amazing, but in my head it was shit because I couldn't get that last 5 to 10%, and I worked my arse off, and to be quite honest, it screwed me up a lot mentally in my 3rd year of university because I couldn't reach that 100%. Because I was focusing so much more on the negatives, and that's what people do in games. They never talk about how good a game is, really, unless, actually, let's say multiplayer games. Most people don't look at the positives of the game. They always look at the negatives, and maybe not even just to fix them, maybe just to bitch. And it's really an issue, but personal feelings affecting how a vehicle should be, or your opinion on it and where it should be, that is an issue, because you cannot be rational when you're bringing your personal opinions in. You have to look at everything, and a lot of players don't, which is why that's a point against listening to players, because they get emotional, because they have this idea in their head how the plane or how the tank should be, and if it isn't like that, then they're going to be pissed. It's just something. You know, I thought it was an interesting point that it was obviously a rant, so, you know, it was kind of just going along with it. But I thought it was an interesting point because for me anyway, it went against what he was saying before. BRs need to be less compressed, which was another one. Completely agree. I think planes should be dropped to 0.6 and 0.3 in tanks. It's that's the range that you should fight. And I personally wouldn't mind waiting longer for a game to get a fairer matchup. I think that's definitely an issue in tanks mainly. I've talked at length about the Pershing, the M26, and how it shouldn't be facing stuff which is at 7.7. Even facing Tiger 2s can be a bit of a stretch when you don't have the upgraded ammo for it, which is another thing to be debated. The idea that a stock vehicle is completely different to a fully upgraded one. Does the BR need to be changed because of that? That's something, once again, I've talked in length about. But I do think the BRs need to be less compressed. I'm fine with waiting for 10 minutes for a game, because I can look at other stuff. I'm pretty sure if people are waiting for a game in War Thunder, they're not just staring at the screen in War Thunder. I'm guessing, they might be on the internet, maybe they're looking at stuff in their hangar and things like that, but I don't think people would really be worried about the wait time. In Dota 2, I wait 5 to 10 minutes for matches because of where my MMR is, and I'm fine with that. Maybe other people aren't, then go play a different vehicle, or, go play a different mode. I really don't see the reasoning there, but then again, that's just me. The thing about the solution with BRs needing to be less compressed, that doesn't solve the issue of something like the HO229. The HO229 is in a really odd place right now, but we'll get onto that in some of the next points. So BR is so compressed, so players spend more money to up-tier themselves. This is the conspiracy theory he came up with. I don't agree, because if that was true, then there would be premium Tiv Hive vehicles. And because basically Gaijin would be saying, right, we want to make more money, people want to up-tier themselves, premium Tier 5 vehicles sounds like a great idea. And maybe they don't have premium Tier 5 vehicles because they want people to spend money on Golden Eagles so they can maybe, boost research and stuff like that. But I still think Tier 5 premium vehicles would be much more expensive than doing that. So I can't see that as a reason. Also, you could just say, well, maybe the player isn't pre-planning far enough. Maybe they see that the HO229 is at a really high BR and won't challenge anything, so that maybe they research the other tree. Maybe they go for the ME262s or the CL13. I just don't agree with this so players spend more money thing. Because for me personally, I haven't. And, it's once again, it's bringing up a personal opinion, those player thoughts and opinions that you were talking about. And we have completely contradicting stances of it. If people want to spend more money to up-tier themselves to that 9-0 or whatever, then let them do it. But for me personally, what I enjoy in the game is playing the game instead of just buying my way through it. I enjoy playing all of the planes. Yes, I believe that certain planes and certain tanks, their BR should be changed, but that's because I've experience with the planes. If you have somebody who buys their way through the game and then uses the top tier vehicles and then bitches about that they can't get kills and stuff, how useful is that player thought or opinion? It's once again another contradicting point to the whole listening to player thoughts and opinions. But I don't think that conspiracy theory is true. If it is, it could be true. Like it kind of sounds logical, but I just think there are too many factors which are against this in the game. And then the last one that I want to bring up is the idea of having a tank BR for planes. And I thought this was a really solid idea. I think that has to happen. Because something in, air realistic battles or air arcade battles, the ground attacker, stuff like the Mosquito, the Ju-87, those like smaller bombers and dive bombers and light bombers and stuff like that, they are pretty much useless in air arcade or air realistic. In air arcade, it's dominated by heavy bombers and normal fighters. In realistic, it's very much the same deal. heavy bombers and but mainly fighters. I think the difference between arcade and realistic is arcade it's more favoured heavy bombers style, whereas in realistic it's more favoured fighters depending on what people play. But I definitely think aircraft should have a different BR from their air BR to their tank BR, if that makes sense. So if they're in a ground forces battle, they should definitely have a different BR to if they were in an air battle, because that was the main reason why they hiked up the HO229, or at least the reason that they gave. And it's a shitty reason. It really is. You are increasing its BR in air battles because in ground battles it is killing tanks. Just think about that. It doesn't sound right, you know, when you say it. And maybe there could be calls of maybe taking away some of its ammo so it's not as useful against tanks. That would be another solution. But overall, having a tank BR for planes, I think that's a great idea, especially for stuff like ground attackers and light bombers, because they have a use in the game in tanks, which is awesome. Also, during confrontation, they have a use, but in air battles they don't. So they should have lower BRs than they normally do. It's another thing that has to be looked into, and I think eventually, once we get all of the tanks and when they're less focused on maps and making tanks and just looking at the raw mechanics of the game, I think that will definitely be something I'll look at, because it just makes sense to, you know? You have a different game mode, so you should have different BRs. That's why in air battles, in arcade and realistic, some planes have different BRs. And yeah, that's just something they're going to have to look into. But overall, it was a rant video, so not all of his points were greatly articulated, but I thought it was useful to listen to, and it just shows a popular community member who, you know, his opinions of the game. And the way we solve these issues is to bring it to the developers' attentions and also have a discussion around it. So, you know, that's what we do. That's what we're all here for. We're all here to play a game and to enjoy it. And you know, and hopefully influence it to make it a better game in, you know, people's opinions. And it's nice to see people, you know, coming out and saying stuff instead of just being positive about the game. It is also good to criticize stuff. Like you cannot be blind to just enjoy something because you find it enjoyable. Everything can be and should be improved. It should become more efficient. It's why most jobs are geared towards that. If you have, you know, if you have two people going for the same job, one is more efficient, the efficient person is always going to have a better go at that job than the inefficient person. And that's how we should see it in games as well. We should embrace criticism of our play, of our skill, and also of the game itself, so we can make it better. That's how we grow as, you know, being philosophical and crap about it. That's how we grow as people. Nobody ever really grows in times of relaxation. They always grow in times of strife. And that's just how humans work. And it's the same with games. But anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. As always, I'll probably be streaming later tonight or something, depending on when this goes up. But have a good day. Really do have a good day. I'll catch you next time.